But black people in this country specifically have never had the opportunities to bring themselves back up. When you're talking about the destroyment of the black family, that also came with a big chunk of the Reagan administration, which was forever and whatever ago.
How is it the government's fault of why dads aren't around?
I mean, we could get into the whole, like, the rhetoric of crack babies and crack
Okay, no,
drug
got it.
dealers
So,
and,
but isn't it a decision to take drugs?
oh, no, 100%.
So, and it's a decision to commit crimes.
Yes.
Okay, so the government didn't do that to them. People
No.
decided to take drugs.
That's true. But do you feel like these populations or these communities?
Hold on, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. One thing that I promised people on the Millionaire Morning Show, I'm going to just keep it 100. The one thing that I promised people on the Millionaire Morning Show was that I was going to 100% be objective, and that is because I am not controlled, I am not paid by, nor am I monetized by anybody other than myself, my own company, YouTube, my sponsorships, which have nothing to do with the Republican Party. And I will preface this by saying, now I could have cut this part out, right? I could have just sped through and went and got, because I did fast forward it so that I can get to the actual rhetoric, all of the prefacing and, can you be racist? Can you not be racist? We've had that conversation 1,000 times, so I've seen that, right? And I think that Charlie Kirk is a really great debater. And I also align with the overwhelming majority of all of the things that I've heard him say up to this point. The one thing that I cannot agree with, and I don't know if he's doing this from a debate perspective or if he's like intentionally being disingenuous, but the fact of the matter is you cannot, I will not, I believe in personal accountability and responsibility, but you cannot say that the government, with all of the information that we know, and the CIA literally filling our neighborhoods and communities and our schools and all of these places with drugs to pay for wars and God knows what else. You cannot sit here and be so disingenuous to where you can say that they did not fill black communities and neighborhoods up with poison and drugs and crack and cocaine and all of these things, because coke was a party drug. It was something that was for everybody. When crack hit, it decimated entire communities. Because if we can stand on that premise and say, well, wait a minute, what responsibility does the government have in poisoning a community? Didn't you choose to take it? Yeah, of course you got to take personal responsibility and ownership, but it doesn't absolve the federal government at that time from poisoning our communities and then ultimately tying people back to the federal government with removing the man out of the home and so on and so forth, which then basically tied black people to the Democratic Party, which is one of the reasons why we say you need to get off the Democrat plantation. But to be so disingenuous, it would be like us saying, we don't need to close off our borders and take responsibility and tariff China and also hold Mexico and Canada accountable for the flood of fentanyl that's coming into this country. Because if nobody was buying it, it wouldn't be that big a deal. If nobody was buying it, listen, you can choose not to take fentanyl. You see what I'm saying? You see the correlation? And again, I'm being objective. Two things can be true at the same time. I'm sure at some point he's going to make a point in this conversation, but I didn't want to cut this out, and I absolutely wanted to leave this in because this is one thing, the first thing personally, because I don't watch every single thing Charlie Kirk, this is the first thing that I've seen him be off on completely. Personal responsibility is absolutely important. At the same time, you cannot be so disingenuous to where you say, well, isn't it your responsibility to not take coke? Absolutely, but it's also the responsibility of the federal government to not put it in front of your face as far as temptation. He's off on that one. Real talk. Straight up. And it doesn't mean that I don't like Charlie Kirk. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to still be conservative. It doesn't mean that I'm not Republican. But he's absolutely positively off on that. And when you poison an entire community, you give another community an advantage over them because now you have an entire generation of crack babies.
Have in statistics been overly
Wish I would have been there on that one. I would have absolutely debated him on that.
populated by police officers?
Well, so just you seem like a really
She's too
sweet
young.
person.
She don't get it
So I
yet.
don't want to try to be too
No,
like
go ahead.
intense. So is that cool?
Go ahead. Go
What
ahead.
percentage of America is black? 13%, right?
13.6%.
What percentage of the murders in America are committed by black people?
I don't know the specific statistics.
Guess.
Over 50%, if I had to guess.
It's
50%.
It's 60%.
60%.
So maybe when you do 60% of the killings and you're 13% of America, more cops should be around your neighborhoods.
Do you?
That's a fact.
But there is no.
That
There's
is
no
absolutely
cops in-
true. That is 100% true. We need more policing. We need more harsher penalties, consequences, resources. You do need to make sure that you put more of that in your communities, because it is a pivotal role in order to truly bring up a culture in a community. We need to stop divesting ourselves against police officers and embrace them so that we can then fix our communities. 100%.
There's not
Especially
an
today.
equal number of cops in the white suburban neighborhoods,
Because
in the
there's
same
not as much
neighborhood,
murder.
the same neighborhoods that are controlling the
But see,
like they have
you look
cocaine in
at
their houses, but it's not treated the same.
And this is okay, Gigi, because it really is flushing out our different worldviews. You look at cops as if they're there to catch you and get you. We look at cops as they're there to protect and serve and help us.
And that's only because in this country, I mean, police used to be able to drag black people out in the streets and hose them down and sick dogs on them and tear them apart. And we never really had the conversation that where do we get away from that?
We definitely had the conversation.
Like-
After George Floyd, the whole country blew up under the conversation. Okay.
Yes, but it was a big standing on, should cops be able to do this? It's almost as if when a black person is murdered by police or at the hands of police, the gun.
Nah, at some point you got to stop running in the victim Olympics, and start looking at police officers today as individuals. Because if a cop does something, then you absolutely need to hold them accountable. But it doesn't necessarily extend to all cops, because most cops that I know are cops that actually live, work, play, and then police in their own communities, and they still get a bad rap as a result of it.
Bullet that came from a police
Which
officer's
happens
registered
on average,
gun.
how many times a year would you say a black person killed by police?
2, 5,
I mean,
10.
at one point it was happening
Unarmed.
at least. Okay, if it was happening at least last year, it was going on about.
You got to just say you don't
It was
know.
at least a month that it was a major case. But
Yeah,
in
so it's
terms
about-
of
it's
the
about-
average city, I don't
it's about
know the
10 a
average
year,
city.
right?
I know though, but
So
Figured
in
that.
terms of what actually makes it to
Less
major
than 10,
media,
about
because
10.
not everything.
It's the Washington Post's own database, left wing, 10 black individuals a year. So here's my contention.
Go ahead.
So you have a population that dads are not around,
Facts.
that is very, very murderous
Facts.
per population capita,
Against
that
themselves.
is very violent,
Against
more
themselves.
likely to be involved in gangs. And we, as conservatives, look at that and we say, wait a second, like the problem is within the community. The problem is not the government. The problem is not the culture. The problem is not the history. Instead,
Problem is the culture, is because we get indoctrinated by the things that we celebrate the most, which is trash. Absolutely, maybe not necessarily American culture, but black culture and the things that we celebrate the most does promote and incentivize us to do things that's not against that's not best for us.
Dad, really what needs to happen is black leadership, black pastors, and black dads need to go into the black community and say, we're better than this. Cut the killing, cut the violence. Do you know the most, one more point.
Go ahead.
Who is, outside of heart disease and all that, what is the number one killer of black people in America?
Black people.
I know about like diabetes,
Black
but
Fellow black people.
Yep. Facts.
A black person is far more likely to be killed by another black person than anything else. Black people are a greater threat to their own people than any other community. So it's not like white supremacists coming into these communities and they're mowing down. It's black on black gang violence.
Facts.
but that's not okay.
And one of the things that liberals and Democrats use to keep black people down is to not allow them to face their own demons by continuing to act like this boogeyman with a white robe on his head that is going to ultimately get you. When the reality is that you're much more likely, if you get something in your own community, in your own hood, it's a chance that you're going to get ran up on and you got to be careful about that. He was right and wrong at the same time, and he used the wrong in order to justify right. But I don't agree with 100% of what he said. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon link is in the description. Also, Teach Henley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm gonna holler at you guys later. Peace.